The Descent! I'm your host, Anna Prosser. I'm thrilled to be here. This is the yearly gathering of all of us who love Dungeons & Dragons. We had so many good times last year. We're here to return this year. And of course, as you know, this is the time where we talk about all the exciting things that are coming up for Dungeons & Dragons. I have some amazing esteemed guests up here with me. And if you guys would just introduce yourselves to the people, starting with you, Chris.
Absolutely. I'm Chris Perkins. I'm the principal narrative designer at Wizards of the Coast on Dungeons & Dragons. And my job title means that I get to work on all of the stories that drive our entertainment offerings.
I'm Jeremy Crawford. I am the lead rules designer for Dungeons & Dragons, which means I get to work on all of the rulesy bits that appear in all of our products.
And I am Kate Welch. I am a game designer on Dungeons & Dragons, which means that I do sort of miniature versions of both of what they do.
And we have big announcements coming up. Last year, Chris just blurted it out. So, like, I saw you just trying to do it just now.
It's already out.
Okay, well, Chris, tell the people what it is they can expect.
Of the story, Descent into
what is
Avernus?
it? What is it? Tell them what it is.
Okay, everything?
Yeah.
It's a trip to hell.
Go to hell.
It's it is D&D meets Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
And
with a bit of Dante's Inferno thrown in.
With a bit of Dante's Inferno thrown in as well. It starts in the city of Baldur's Gate, which is a murder hobo's paradise. It is, if Waterdeep is Metropolis, then Baldur's Gate is Gotham.
Okay.
And lots of blood in the streets. And from there, you are drawn into a sinister plot that has grave consequences. And you are drawn down into the depths of hell.
I don't think I've ever seen a group of people be so excited when you're like, hey, we're going to hell. Everyone's like, yeah, yeah. So tell me why.
It's timely.
I was going to say, is it timely? Like, why? I mean, that was my first thought. Why are we going to hell? I mean, what was the thought? Where did this begin?
Well, the alternative is reality. So.
Right, so we'd rather. It's sad, but true.
Well, as you know, we tried to shake things up with every story to make it very different from the one that comes before and the one comes after, and thematically and in terms of location. But we've been teasing, since the core rulebooks launched, the Blood War and the Outer Planes. And we thought this would be, we've waited long enough, the time is to get off the material plane and visit somewhere, and hell seemed like a good place to start. You can only go up from there, right?
Right.
Technically, it's only the first level. So.
Yeah,
right.
So, and even back when we were working on Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, we knew that this adventure was ahead of us. So, those of you who've read the book know that we have quite a bit in that book about the Blood War, and there's a good chance in Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus, that you're going to witness the Blood War firsthand.
Yes.
That is, if people aren't familiar with the setup for the Blood War, what would you tell them?
So the Blood War is this millennia-long war between devils and demons, our lawful evil fiends and our chaotic evil fiends. A classic example of evil feeding on itself. And in some ways, many people in the D&D multiverse are actually thankful for the Blood War, because the fact that demons and devils are constantly fighting each other means they're often distracted enough to not be consuming the rest of reality.
And this takes place, we start in Baldur's Gate. You mentioned this is kind of the Gotham to the Waterdeep metropolis. So tell people about Baldur's Gate. What can they expect there? If people haven't been familiar with that part of the lore, what is Baldur's Gate like?
Oh, sure. So Baldur's Gate, what we want to do when we revisited Baldur's Gate for this product was to not only flesh it out as a place, but also give it a little bit of a different flavor from what you're used to. Baldur's Gate ended up being a lot of people's introduction to Dungeons & Dragons through the video games and through things like Murder at Baldur's Gate. So Baldur's Gate, we wanted to make sure this felt really gritty and a place that, much like Avernus, you probably don't want to spend a lot of time in. And so we have a chapter in Descent into Avernus that is all about, we call it the Gazetteer, and it's all about Baldur's Gate as a setting, what it's like to be there, what it's like to have adventures there, and also what it's like to be a character who's from Baldur's Gate. There are a bunch of different options for creating a character who's a native of Baldur's Gate and how that might influence and manipulate your character's backstory.
I know that you probably don't want to tell us too many details, but can you give us a little taste of what some of the things you might want to think about as you're thinking about your character from Baldur's Gate? What are some of the things that people could start percolating?
There are dark secrets that your party can have as a group.
Oh.
So essentially everybody at the table buys into something terrible happened in your group's past, and that can set the stage for wacky antics in Baldur's Gate going forward.
Wacky antics?
Yeah, exactly.
We have a dark secret.
Yeah.
Better get into some hijinks.
Yeah. One of the fun things about Baldur's Gate is because it is kind of morally bankrupt, it caters to characters who are a little bit more dark in nature, and they can get away with it here.
Okay.
So you can get in good with the Flaming Fist that runs the city, and then you can go on murder sprees to help them out, and that can be fun. Or not. You don't have to be that guy.
Or you could be good guys.
You can
who
be good
fight
guys.
against that.
Yes, but there's something happening in Baldur's Gate that sort of teases what's to come, sort of an infernal infiltration.
Okay.
We'll call it that. I don't want to spoil anything,
Right.
but you get a little tease of hell before you decide, hey, this is something really bad is about to happen. We can stop it, but to stop it, we have to go to the worst of all possible places. We have to go to Avernus. And Avernus, I think, is worth talking about.
Yeah, tell us a bit about Avernus.
Well, it is the front line of the Blood War. It is as the top layer of hell. It is where the demons and devils smash into each other
The most.
and create just cataclysmic destruction. I mean, it is essentially a plane of wreckage. I mean, imagine a vast desert where you will see entire destroyed cities that have been partially phased in from other worlds in the D&D multiverse. You will see, vast desolation covered with lakes of demonic ichor, swarms of strange insects that come from infernal regions. It's a bad place.
I imagine as a rules designer, that's a fun and interesting place to play where you're like, how do I make this on a massive scale, but then also make it something that people can use mathematically even? Can you tell us a little bit about what we might expect in terms of the structure of the game?
Well, I don't want to give away any of the story, but we do give you guidelines for different mechanics in Avernus. We talk about how even resting there is hard. We talk about how death saving throws may or may not work differently in hell.
Oh no!
And this weekend, this audience might even have a chance to see that in play in some of our main stage games. I talked about those lakes of demonic ichor. Well, bad things can happen to you if you get in contact with that ichor.
But it does have its uses.
Yes.
So one of the things that had to be discussed was if you're going to base an adventure and a story in Avernus, there has to be more there than just demons and devils to give it texture and color. And because it is kind of a battleground and people often get drafted, mercenaries and others get drafted in, evil adventurers might be fighting there, we absolutely wanted to flesh out some other denizens, including the warlords of Avernus, some of which we'll be introducing this weekend. What I mean by the warlords is there are creatures on Avernus that eke out a living kind of outside the eye of the demons and the devils that are prowling around. And many of them have created gangs of marauders that rove around Avernus looking for scrap metal and have these fleets of infernal war machines. Right. And infernal war machines are fun toys that you can play with on Avernus and actually help you get around.
By fun toys, you mean massive death machines.
Massive death machines. And you can give them a little bit of boost by pouring some demonic ichor into them.
Sure. I think we've, in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is a book you should all be familiar with, I think, everyone should buy it. But it's in that book, we introduced some more advanced vehicular rules when it comes to ship-to-ship combat, things like that. And in Descent into Avernus, we've sort of iterated on those vehicular rules to introduce some mechanics about infernal war machines and how you might, I don't know, live your Mad Max Fury Road dreams and fantasies in Avernus.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about this. Like you said, you could do things to kind of juice up your war machines. There may be warlords that are leading. Could I become a warlord? Are there things? Tell me a little bit more about this fantasy that I can live.
You can become a warlord.
Okay,
That's
I'm very
in the book.
excited.
Just Anna.
Okay. Oh, okay. Awesome. I didn't even know. I'm so excited. Tell me a little bit about that, though, like living this kind of, how do I live in that world, and what kind of things can I do to kind of build my team?
Well, you have to be bold, and you have to realize that you are in one of the worst places in the multiverse, and the people that you can draft into your group, unless they're your party members, are probably going to be pretty.
Hopefully they stick around. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But because there's so much carnage and battle damage from crashed demonic or diabolical citadels and stuff lying around, you can basically go around and scrape together the machine parts you need to assemble your own vehicles and customize them accordingly. So there are some customization rules in the book as well, so that you can create custom vehicles that you can romp around on. There is a bit of a catch. There's a more...
Yes.
So it's not all fun and games in hell. Believe me, I know. One of the themes is the moral quandaries of being in this place, the things that you have to wrestle with if you're a good person in hell. One of the things is machines are powered by souls.
Right.
Not necessarily good souls. Most of them are evil souls. But how do you feel about that as a character? You know?
So those souls are being consumed.
Yeah. There's like a furnace in your infernal war machine that consumes the souls and powers it.
There's also the concept in Avernus of, we talked about the dark secrets that can follow you into Avernus from Baldur's Gate. And the reason that becomes applicable in Avernus is because you will be likely approached by devils who wish to strike a deal with you. This is a whole section, a new mechanics section that's in the book. And so your dark secret might become, as you might be the most lawful good paladin in the world. If you have a dark secret and a devil knows about it, that can become a bargaining chip that will compromise your morality in hell.
Yeah. Temptation, bargains, these are the stuff that devils long for. And so whenever you encounter them, chances are you can get out of a situation. And there are lots of very dangerous situations in this adventure. You can get out of them by striking a deal. But every deal you make is a chance that the devils will get what they most want, which is, of course, your eternal soul.
Your own soul.
Yeah.
So is it possible for a lawful good character to thrive in this setting?
Oh, yeah, you'll have a blast.
Yeah?
Dude, unapologetically murdering everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that this is hell, right? Like, no one's having a good time in hell.
That's true.
You're not supposed to,
Yeah.
like, your character should probably feel like they're in hell. And the people that you encounter in hell, they're all designed to be, this was something that Chris kept mentioning as we were designing this book, like, what is this NPC's personal hell? What is it about Avernus that means hell to this character? So that's going to be something that will be super fun to play with as a player. Like, not only do I know my character, what do they do, what are they about, where are they from, but what would make for a personal hell for them? Make sure you tell your DM so they can construct hell for you.
No matter which way the wind is blowing, you're always peeing into the wind.
That's
hell.
You've thought about that.
page one.
And the fun thing about Avernus being essentially the front porch of hell is it is also filled with creatures that aren't devils.
Yes.
There are other adventurers there. There are essentially refugees from other planes of existence who might be trying to get out but have some mission there. So not everyone you meet is necessarily going to be your enemy, but because of the corrupting influence of the place, if anyone has been there long enough, it's possible that they have been morally compromised. And so a good character really has to decide, how long are we going to play around here, or are we going to get this mission over with and get out of here as quickly as possible?
Gotcha.
Because the place starts seeping in. And it can haunt your dreams, it can haunt your waking. A character can very easily start seeing reality in a new way.
Would you guys say it's easier to get into hell than it is to get out of hell? Would you say
yes.
that?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this one of those adventures where your character at the end will likely look very unrecognizable from the character at the beginning? Would you think?
I guess that depends on the player, but that is our intent, is to warp you beyond recognition.
Now,
All right.
I could also see some characters emerging from hell more resplendent with goodness than ever before, because one of the empowering things, I think, for some paladins, clerics of good gods, and others, is when you go to Avernus, your cosmic enemy is right in front of you. It's not an abstraction.
True.
You know, it's very easy sometimes, even in D&D where you're fighting monsters, to think, well, you know, just how evil are they? Well, when you're in Avernus, they are evil to the bone, you know, and so suddenly I think you could be looking at something that gives you a mission, and you could return to the mortal world with a fire for making the world a better place, because you realize just how bad things could get. Because if more of reality became like that horrible place you just left, you've got your work cut out for you to make sure the rest of the multiverse gets to hang on to the light that it has.
Gotcha.
That sort of transitions pretty well to the concept of the ruler of Avernus, and who perhaps was someone who also saw that things could get pretty bad and decided that she was going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to talk about her? Can we?
I love her.
I love her
story.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I heard conversations backstage about whether or not we were going to talk about her. So I know there's a lot that
Yeah.
we probably don't want to reveal, but what can we know?
I mean, she's on the cover of the book.
She's on the cover of the book, but she's also detailed pretty well in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. So there's stuff we can say about her. This is Zariel. She is a fallen angel who rules the top level of Avernus and has for a very long time. But her fall is what makes her interesting. She, of course, being an angel, a character of complete good, pure good, she was able to see from her perch that the demons and the devils, she felt that the angels had to get involved with this conflict, or one would overrun the other. And so the angels refused, and Zariel said, well, fuck it, I'm going to go myself. And yeah, that ends up being how she comes into Avernus and gets more than what she bargained for.
Gotcha.
She is the best.
So, and we may get to meet her and pick her brain, as it were.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, or she's going to slice open your head and pick your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the coolest things about Zariel is that she is on the front lines. So Avernus is a plane where the front lines of the Blood War are taking place, and it's concentrated along the river Styx through Avernus. And so the closer you get to the river Styx, the crazier, the more intense the fighting is. And the more intense the fighting, that is the place where you're going to find Zariel. She leads from the front. She's a general, and she is terrifying to behold. Like, you don't want to be, especially, you get down into Avernus pretty low level, folks. Please do not go looking for Zariel right off the bat. She's a final boss kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite things to come out of movies like the latest Avengers movies and Black Panther are these villains whose motivations you sympathize with. Once you understand, oh, this villain has, I don't necessarily think that killing half of the entire universe is the best way to go about it, but your motivations are pure. Like, I get where you're coming from. And so I really like that when you look back at Zariel's history and her motivations for getting involved in the Blood War, you're like, oh, dang, would I have done anything different in her situation? I might have done the same thing. So being able to sort of get that story, figure out where your character would have fallen, is one of the biggest, coolest morality checks, if you meet her, which you might not.
If you do, and you think that there's something there that can be saved, there's a chance you might be able to save her. The redemption in a story like this is very important, I think.
But then there's a power vacuum. And what happens then?
Well, and I was going to say, you mentioned this is a murder hobo's paradise. So if I want to go in and I'm like, I just want to cause havoc, want to be the most crazy character that is someone who could not live in our society. Maybe I want to join up with whatever big power I can get and just cause more chaos. It sounds like I can do that as well.
Oh yeah, you'll have a great time.
Yeah, because you could start your own war band with your own infernal war machines and just be riding around like crazy and just stay in Avernus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
maybe
it's
I want.
miserable though.
The food tastes terrible.
Yes.
I mean, that makes sense. But maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm saying, could I maybe I want to redeem her, but maybe I just want to impress her. Like, can I do that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Oh,
become
yeah.
one of her vassals.
Cool.
She has a very non-binary set of outcomes.
Gotcha.
So when you encounter Zariel, if you encounter Zariel, and you have made certain choices, which are all very complicated and cool and tied up into the vastness that is Avernus, every group I think will have a slightly different encounter with her.
Cool.
She's really interesting.
So one of the challenges we face, I think, when we deal with kind of morally ambiguous characters, or especially evil characters, and in a party, is like, how do we make sure that there's a reason for us to stick together? Is that the point of these kind of dark secrets? Or tell me a little bit about how the party dynamic will play out here.
So this adventure is built to handle any kind of party. But if for some reason your party has some elements that don't seem to fit together very well, then the dark secret mechanic can help unite them or sort of trap them together in a
Gotcha.
way. They become linked by this secret. So that's really what's kind of holding them together in that case. Now, I'm not actually a big fan of the all-evil parties because they tend to be self-destructive, but in an adventure like this, where they can make dark deals, you can get away. You can actually have a lot of fun with that here.
Okay.
Part of the thing that makes hell cool is this is the devil's home turf. If you kill a devil on the material plane, they just turn into a pool of goo but reform in the 9 hells. If you kill a devil in the 9 hells, the devil's dead forever.
Right.
So devils don't want to die. This is the place where they are actually the most vulnerable. So they're eager to make deals with characters who have a slightly broken moral compass.
Right. I see.
Because they actually have a fear
Yeah.
in hell that they don't have when they're summoned into the mortal world.
And they're stuck
Right.
in the worst bureaucracy in the universe,
Yeah?
right? It's hideous. The only way they can become higher level devils is to be promoted by their superiors, and the superiors like to lord it over them.
Right.
It's absolutely the worst corporate environment you can possibly imagine.
Right, right.
It sounds so familiar.
You have to kill me, Kate, to get the job,
Not a problem.
which she can do.
Start scheming now. So there's a lot of party mechanics that we've been playing with recently, a lot of kind of the intrigue or things where we need to gather a whole bunch of information to put together a puzzle. What kind of things will we be doing here? Is it more of this kind of gather and crafting mechanic? Is it still some intrigue? What are kind of the major things that we're going to be focused on here?
Go ahead.
There is a lot of, there are mysteries to solve, especially
Okay.
in the Baldur's Gate portion of the adventure. And honestly, there's so much material about Baldur's Gate itself that I could imagine DMs using the Baldur's Gate Gazetteer to create whole other Baldur's Gate campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
But there are essentially crimes and other intrigues in the city to solve. So, in a way, you're going to be kind of dark detectives figuring out what the hell is going on here before you then go on into hell itself.
Yeah.
And,
Actually, some of my favorite villains are in the Baldur's Gate section.
Yeah?
They are
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
There's also Avernus itself is a humongous playground that we have dedicated a huge part of this book to detailing. So even if something, if you're following your own storyline, you've got your own campaign, and our dumb storyline doesn't fit into it, Avernus itself is a super great place to play. It has been so well detailed. There's this gorgeous map that we spent a bunch of time trying to put all of these cool locations on this map, and it's just going to be an incredible sandbox for any party, any DM who feels like their players deserve to go to hell.
speaking of DMs, we spent a lot of time talking about the players and the parties, but what does this particular adventure offer a DM that might be new and exciting that people can look forward to?
Oh, that's a really good question. So first thing is, this adventure it's sort of written for new DMs.
Oh, okay.
It might surprise some people to hear that, because there's, diving into the planes is often a very complex thing.
Start them off with fire and brimstone right away.
Right,
Yeah.
but the way it's written, it's very, very friendly, user-friendly, so that new DMs can kind of get their feet wet in the Baldur's Gate section with some interesting baddies and sort of classic dungeons,
Gotcha.
as well as some locations that they might know from the Baldur's Gate video game, things like that. And then it sort of gracefully slides them into hell and gives them things like, here are some quick DM tips for how to bring hell to life, how to make the characters not forget where they are. And they're meant to be things that you can internalize very easily. And then, as Kate was talking about a moment ago, the sandbox nature means you can kind of pick and choose locations. And you can make the hell part as long or as short as you want it to, really.
One of my favorite things about Avernus that we have talked about a bunch is that because, it's not the material plane, time and space don't work the way that you think that they should in Avernus. And this can maybe seem a little daunting to a new DM, but I think it's an incredible tool because that means you can stretch, any voyage in Avernus can take as long or as little time as you want it to. Things that your players might be able to see if they have a map, they can see a thing, they'd be like, whoa, it's way over there. And you'd be like, actually, you know what, you guys see it right over the horizon. So it's a very cool sort of gimmick that makes it easier, I think, to run games for a new DM. Plus, we also have a bunch of new monster stat blocks, so DMs seem to like those.
Yes.
Yep. new monster stat blocks and also new magic items, like we always have in.
Whoa, magic item fans in here.
We finally be able to use our not so new actually, Infernal font that we created.
Oh yeah, have you guys seen the font? It's on your water bottles, maybe?
I noticed that. I was like,
Look under your chairs. Everybody has a water bottle. Yeah, who was do you guys know the name of the font creator?
Yes, Daniel Reeve.
Daniel Reeve.
He created a bunch of fonts for us, Infernal being one of them, one of our most beautiful ones, I think.
Yeah.
And we've got the font Cipher in the book as well, so that if you want to be able to translate some of the runes and stuff that are hidden in the book.
Or write little nasty notes for your players in Infernal. Yes.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of really excited whispers with the Cipher. I think people get really excited about that,
Yeah.
Now, we only have a couple minutes because we have more things to announce, but before I let you guys go, I know that when you make something like this, there's always something where you're like, be sure, don't miss this little part, something that's kind of your pet exciting thing. I know you guys don't want to spoil, but are there any little messages that you want to give anyone, like, don't miss this, your little favorites?
Abyssal chickens can be familiars.
I heard about those. Quite a story.
Yeah.
I can't follow that.
Before we run out of time, I do want to just say a number of people worked on this story.
Oh gosh, yes.
And we'd be remiss not to mention at least some of the names. But Adam Lee, who is a narrative designer on our team, he is the father of this story. He led its creation, and he orchestrated the team that got together to brainstorm all the crazy ideas that ended up going in the book, which included Kate, included narrative designer Ari Levitch, included comic book writer Jim Zub, and actor, producer, director Joe Manganiello, and a number of other individuals.
Yeah. Huge group of people,
Huge.
Really talented.
Yeah, massive group of people, and it also pulled in and he corralled a bunch of writers, freelance writers, many of whom are here at the show, and will be free to talk about their contributions.
Yay.
As they will. And it also...
Without giving away the story.
Without giving away the story, you can talk about what you worked on. And artists. The art in this book is not like the art in a lot of our other books.
How so?
It's crazy.
It's super crazy.
It's super crazy.
It's hellish.
It's hellish.
I have a story about the art. So there is a particular place, speaking of like something cool that you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
If you're in Avernus, I feel like I'm going to recommend like a fried chicken place to you. You got to go. If you are in Avernus and you see something on the horizon that looks like a giant wound creeping out of the earth, Go check it out. We wrote an art description for this piece, and it was Titus, I think, who was the artist on it, and I got a message. I got a message from him on this art description because I was just like, make it look like a giant weeping scab, like growing up over this thing, and there should be a lot of blood and like flesh. And I got a message from him like, this is the grossest Google search I've ever had to do.
Well, that is the perfect place to end it. Great advice. Always walk toward the wound. Thank you guys so much. Let's hear it one more time. Thank you. You guys can head backstage.
All right.
And now we will welcome some new guests. Thank you very much.
I'm staying.
Yeah. Oh, you can stay, I guess.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, babe. Thank you.
Oh. Oh. I got to sit back. Hey.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Welcome. Welcome to the stage. We've been talking a lot about hell, a lot about gross, bleeding Google searches.
I know. Just another day.
Yeah. But let's introduce all of you in case people don't know you. Let's start over here. Who are you? What do you do? How will people in Dungeons & Dragons know you?
My name is Stacy King, and I'm a freelance writer. I'm actually working on my first project for Dungeons & Dragons, which is the Young Adventurers Guide series that's coming out.
So cool.
Yay! It's been super fun, and I've been co-writing that with Jim Zub and Andrew Wheeler, who unfortunately couldn't be here.
Yeah,
So.
we are super pumped for people to read these books.
Yeah.
We're gonna be
I can't wait to
chatting.
talk about it.
Yeah.
But Shelly.
Hi, I'm Shelly Mazzanoble, and
Who requires no introduction?
I'm so excited to be in hell. I've never been so freaking excited. I am a brand manager at Wizards on the D&D team, and along with Greg Tito, everyone's favorite, I co-host Dragon Talk.
And what are you here to announce?
Stuff!
Hell yeah.
We're getting there.
I'm Kate Welch. I'm a game designer on Dungeons & Dragons.
Give it up for Kate. I'm Jim Zub. I write comics, including the official Dungeons & Dragons comic series I've been doing since 5th edition launch, and I co-wrote Rick and Morty versus Dungeons & Dragons. And this just feels like the greatest Dungeons & Dragons prom ever, because I'm like, so many cool projects. As they were mentioning, I got to do the story push for Descent to Avernus. We brainstormed a bunch of this crazy stuff back in 2017. And now it's here, guys. We're all going to hell, and you're coming with me. It's going to be so much fun. This sucker right here, by the way, I put it down. This is a soul coin.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, souls, and, well, you need some way to spend those souls once the devils get their due. And so this is something I came up with Adam, and we joked around. We were like, man, we got to make, coins someday when this thing comes out. And I got one, 20 minutes ago, and it's real.
Just please be careful with that.
It's heavy morally.
There's a soul in there.
It does. It feels good. I mean, it feels bad. It feels real bad. I'm very conflicted about this. Yeah.
You were talking about the weight backstage.
Yeah, it's got a moral weight. If you have more than one of them as a good character, it really genuinely weighs you down. Whereas devils will use them as ammunition or fuel, or some of them will skip them across, the river Styx.
He said we. He said devils. He said we.
Yeah.
I mean them. Those guys.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they're good.
Before we move away, because we have lots of fun things to talk about, but before we move away from talking about this adventure, Chris did mention the abyssal chickens.
Yes.
He told me a great story about how those came about.
The abyssal chicken may be the greatest invention. I can't take credit for that. Artist Max Dunbar, who you guys might know from Legends of Baldur's Gate. Give it up for Max. I won't embarrass him. He's in the audience, but he won't stand up because he's too embarrassed. Or will he? Or will he? Max Dunbar, stand up, buddy.
Yeah, there he is!
So Max was trying to put together concept art for Descent to Avernus and needed something for scale, and was like, we need some wildlife or something to show. And they were like, it's hell, there's no wildlife. And he's like, well, what if there's a birds or flocks of something? And eventually this idea of abyssal chicken came up. They're disgusting. They're wonderful. You guys are going to love them.
They're
Everyone
horrifying.
they'll want a pet.
Yeah, and they kick your ass.
They're great.
Really? Yeah. They're powerful? Too?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So Max and I worked together on the Legends of Baldur's Gate comic series, and he's been doing the covers for the comic series ever since. And everyone keeps telling us, like, man, I wish you guys, Max and you, would do more D&D comics together. I wish you guys would do more D&D comics together. So today, we're announcing Dungeons & Dragons Infernal Tide. Oh, it just so happens the Baldur's Gate heroes, including Minsk and Boo, are going to Avernus.
Yay!
Drawn by Max Dunbar. We are going buck. And what's amazing is my scripts are going to be so terse because I'm just going to say, all that stuff you designed, do that. It's a blood wart, draw that. So yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be the easiest script I've ever written, and it's going to be the most beautiful book we've ever done. I can't wait for people to read it.
Yeah, tell me, if people have never dabbled yet in Dungeons & Dragons comics, what can they expect?
So when I set out to do the D&D comic back in 2014, I wanted it to feel like you're playing a D&D game. Like, not that we're going to call out stats or have dice rolls, but that there was a sense of spontaneity to it. And the great thing about having Minsk and Boo is there's a real, you know, he just kind of does what he wants. So there are those turns that happen in the stories where Minsk will tear off on a thing, and you can almost feel the dungeon master, maybe the writer, struggling to keep this thing on the rails. And it's a real joyful kind of adventurous quality. So we've done 4 miniseries so far. We did Legends of Baldur's Gate, Shadows of the Vampire, Frostran's Fury, and recently Evil at Baldur's Gate. And I wanted to make sure we settled the team back in, in Baldur's Gate, because I knew we were going to take them from there, into Descent into Avernus kind of content. And so the stuff that you're reading about in the source book, you're going to be able to see some of that play out on the page. Big, beautiful, amazing artwork, and just a wild story, the biggest, most epic thing we've ever put to the page. And stuff that's described in those books, we get to do pages and pages of cool, lush artwork, and yeah, I'm going to make Max cry with the amount of stuff he has to draw. It's going to be great. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Kate was mentioning living our Mad Max Fury Road fantasies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you tell us about what kind of visuals we could maybe expect here if people are just getting their hands on the books? They haven't seen the source book yet. Tell us a little bit about some of your favorite ideas visually.
Oh, well, I don't want to reveal too much of the story stuff. It's all we're all dancing around some of the big plot points, so I don't want to get too crazy about those aspects of it. But the Blood War obviously plays a big part in it, and some of the huge, just gargantuan war machines, and the way the Blood War plays out. There's this what's called the Infernal Tide. It's literally this tide of bone, disgusting amounts of corpses and creatures that are going to wash over people that get in the way. It's gross.
You were just talking about
I was backstage while you talked about a huge wound in the ground. We were just trying to keep up with you.
That's yours is worse.
No. But yeah, it's really, really awesome stuff. It's just this heavy metal wonderland of kookiness and and our hamster-laden heroes. It's going to be a good time all around.
Nothing bad better happen to Boo.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm really excited about
Nothing bad's happening.
Nothing happened.
I'm having a real good time. It's going to be tons of fun.
You can go, Boo. That's fine.
Oh, my God. And there we just lost half our audience in one fell swoop. That's good. So, yeah.
Is there any particular thing yet that you have in mind that you would want to point out, like, hey, don't miss this, or a little thing you'd like to tease about the comics before we move on to talk about?
Sure. That's a good question. There is a really cool sequence that takes place, combat that takes place in Candlekeep before they end up twisting themselves down to hell. And it's like this bonkers action scene that's going to take place in the Grand Library that I can't wait for people to see play out. Books can be weapons.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I think that's true, like metaphorically and physically.
I think so.
Okay.
If they're big,
We're pretty literal about it here.
Awesome. Great. Well, I want to transition from talking about that to talking about what I believe you're here to tell us about, Shelly. Do you want to tell us? Or do you want me to say the name?
You can say the name.
So tell us about Dungeon Mayhem.
Dungeon Mayhem.
You guys like Dungeon Mayhem?
Have you guys played Dungeon Mayhem? It's awesome, right?
So fun, right?
It is. So if you haven't played Dungeon Mayhem, it is our card game that we released last fall. It's a D&D themed, totally easy to get into, easy to learn, fast-paced, family-friendly game. And I mean, I think the world just needs more mayhem, right? So we are, the game was obviously like the first thing that people said when they played it. They were like, well, so when's the expansion coming? Well, obviously it's built for expansion. So we're making an expansion. Yay! And it's coming out this September. And you will get to play characters that will be familiar if you ever played any of the Baldur's Gate video games.
What a strong thematic we have going on here.
The awesome shape-shifting druid. She is one of the new character decks, as well as Minsk and Boo.
Yay!
And the decks they're fully playable with the 4 original decks, so we're just giving you more options to play with. And the art is fantastic. We worked with Jake Parker on this set. He is an illustrator that you may know from the Inktober Art Challenge. He was the founder of that. And I think he just had an awesome time doing it. And Boo is so cute. So cute. And our awesome graphic designer at Wizards, Trish Yoakum, was frantically building me mock-ups of all the cards to bring today here. So if we run into each other, I'll have them, and I will gladly I'll spoil them all. I will show you everything. We could even play. Like we'll just play. So
fun in hell.
Yeah. If you guys have not played Dungeon Mayhem, it's a card game, and it's like Shelly said, so fun and so easy. Definitely go pick it up. It's the best.
Yeah. Fun and frantic. Like it
is
very
frantic.
really well.
Yeah.
I'm interested because we spent so much time talking about corpse waves and
it's a little change.
And then you mentioned family friendly. So so tell us a little bit about the difference between this. Like, where are some of the themes that we'll see that we recognize, and then where are some of the things that are maybe a little bit lighter than you would see?
Well, it's definitely lighter just in general. Like the art is very whimsical. It's very we use icons a lot, so the younger kids who maybe aren't as strong readers, they don't really have to read that much. They just are used to looking at the icons and knowing what to do based on that. And I mean, I play it with my 5-year-old, and we say 8 and up, but I think kids 5 and up can play it. Or we actually have a very cute video of a 3-year-old playing it. So
nice.
yeah. So and in that sense, it's meant to just be like something you want to play in between your D&D games, or just while you're just waiting for a meeting to start. Like
and the nice thing is the pack is so small. I throw it in my luggage when I'm just going to travel to conventions. It's like, oh, this is a good little pickup.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And is the expansion, does it have a name?
Oh, yeah. It's actually called Battle for Baldur's Gate.
Nice.
Ooh. Thanks for reminding me.
I was realizing, because sometimes these kinds of games can be gateways or introductory tools to help somebody learn about the world of Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
And we may have some people watching who are using this event to kind of learn more about Dungeons and Dragons or the lore. We talked a lot about Minsk and Boo, and I realized that some people may be like, who is that? Can one of you tell us a little bit about them?
Do you want me to tell you a little bit about Minsk
what's
and
happening?
They want you to tell them. They need you to tell them.
Stop looking at me.
I can do that. So Minsk and Boo are these fan favorite characters from the Baldur's Gate video games. And for me, they honestly represent the very playful kind of side of Dungeons and Dragons, as much as we do high drama and big action and intensity, and that is a great part of the game and something I love deeply. They really have there's a spontaneous and a silly and a playful quality to the way that they approach adventure. And adventure is what they're here for. They're here to prove their heroes, and well, I say they. It is this what we call addled ranger who may not always remember things properly and may not know where he is at any particular time. And his animal companion, who is a small hamster. Not just any hamster, he's a miniature giant space hamster.
Right. Thank you.
And they communicate, and maybe he is Minsk's moral core, or maybe he is his advisor, or maybe he is the devil on his shoulder. But whatever it may be, Minsk and Boo are going to get themselves in trouble and adventure and save people at the same time, whether or not they intend to. So in the original continuity of the Baldur's Gate video games, it takes place over a century ago. But in the Legends of Baldur's Gate comic, I found a tricky way to bring them into current continuity, where they now lie. And that's why they're in all the games and all the stuff now, because people really have embraced those characters and love them as even a fraction as much as I do. It's such a joy to have them now playing around.
Yeah, we saw them represented last year. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see some of them this year. We have lots of content coming, so who knows?
Lots of fun stuff in the wings. Yeah, it's going to be great.
But we just talked about getting people interested in Dungeons and Dragons, or maybe making it more accessible. We talked about playing with kids. So I want to talk now about these Young Adventurers guides. Can you give us the description of what is a Young Adventurers guide?
So the idea with this is to give kids, give readers of all types, ages 8 and plus, an entry point into the world of Dungeons and Dragons. So it's focusing less on the rules. We don't actually get into statistics and dice rolling and stuff yet in these books. What we're doing is introducing you to the concepts of Dungeons and Dragons, how characters work, the different races, the different classes, how those combine, how you would equip a character to go out on adventures. And also in like Monsters and Creatures, doing kind of a guideline to the different types of creatures that you might encounter. A lot of these are obviously combat-based, but we tried to flesh it out so you can look at the broad scope of what you can do with Dungeons and Dragons. So there's some encounters that are more, you know, flumps, for example, where you're more negotiating with them or having unusual interactions.
How would you imagine that someone uses a book like this?
Well, I mean, they're great because you can kind of pick them up and flip through. They're designed to be able to, you know, start reading from kind of anywhere. So a kid who's really obsessed can dig in and just read them cover to cover, or you can kind of dip in and out as interest flip through. There's about 70 new pieces of original art in each of the books. Ooh. So you can flip through and just read in on whatever catches your eye on a particular day.
It was really cool. As I was flipping through, it kind of gave me a lot of simplified understanding of some of the monsters that I'm really familiar with.
Yeah.
For example, I think there was a section that's like, when you meet this monster, you may want to do this, but don't do this. You know, and that helped me actually, even as a player. I was like, oh, duh, I should have thought about that monster that way.
Yeah. Well, we really wanted to encourage the idea of thinking about Dungeons and Dragons as a storytelling thing, and to look at some of the things that kids can really learn from playing the game, which is things like creative problem solving, right? Do you need to fight those goblins, or can you just pay them off and they'll go away?
Right.
You know, things like working collaboratively, so it's really focused on how what you're doing in Dungeons & Dragons is telling a story with your friends, and that you're all working together to come up with a narrative that you're all going to enjoy. Those kinds of things, yeah.
I remember as a kid that we would do a lot of that kind of like role-playing play that didn't have any rules. So it seems like there's kind of guidelines in here that come from the rules, but they aren't spelled out. Is that right?
Part of what we get into is actually some of the logic behind the rules. So we talk about why different races are the way that they are, like that elves live really long, and that creates a detachment from reality and or detachment from kind of the day-to-day concerns. And so we don't really get into things like racial bonuses and so on. It's more about what's the kind of character that you want to portray, and which combination of race and class is going to let you tell a story about that kind of person.
Right, and I saw that there's a combat rating style thing for the monsters as well?
Yeah, for all the monsters we did a simplified version of the 1 to 20 danger rating, so it's actually just a 1 to 5 scale. And so when you're flipping through, you can get a pretty good feel of, oh, these guys would be pretty easy to take on, and oh, I definitely don't want to fight one of them.
Right. And I also saw a cool flow chart for the character making.
Yes, yeah, that's something that Jim actually put together, and it's basically in both the Warriors and Weapons book that comes out this summer and in a future Spellcasters Focus book. There's a flowchart to help you decide if you're sort of trying to figure out what kind of character you want to make. Do you want to be more a front line, or do you want to be kind of backup? Do you want to be more sneaky or more direct in how you handle your attacks? And in following through and answering those questions will help you give some guidance as to the kinds of characters you might want to explore to have those types of adventures you're looking for.
Yeah, we wanted kids to be able to just answer a series of questions and get excited about making a character first, not overwhelm them with charts or dice rolls or anything like that. So then either a parent or a friend, they can either pick up the starter set later, or you can then take them to an adventures, demo at your local game store. And then they take that character idea and we say, okay, now roll these dice. But we didn't want you to worry about stats. We wanted to think about, what do you imagine yourself being? What are your goals? What are you excited about visually? And one of the things that 10 Speed got behind us on is, I said, look, as much new artwork as possible, because to me, I wanted, first of all, our focal point to be slightly different than the art that's in the Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual, and I didn't want to just feel like we were reducing those books down to a simpler version. This is very specifically built for this audience, a new player, someone who's coming at this completely fresh. And they came back to us and said, how about all new artwork? And I said, yes, that also works. So there's more than 70 new pieces in there. They're wonderful, really beautiful. We're going to have the books here, so stop us when you see us, check them out, flip through it. They're just beautiful, lush, illustrated books. And even the encounters and stuff that we put together were like, here's a short fiction piece, and at the end there's some questions, the kind of questions a dungeon master might ask you. What would you do in this scenario? Would you run? Would you fight? But also things that get a little bit more subtle. Hey, if you lie to these guys, maybe you'll get away with it, but if you don't, they'll be even more angry. You know, those kinds of things to get the reader into the mindset of you are in control of your own story, and by the choices you make, you're going to make something cool. You know?
That's awesome.
I think that when we make these kinds of projects and we're thinking about kids, like you said, we're thinking about decision-making skills or growing or learning. What were some of the things that were really important to the development of this book, and what do you think parents can look to bring out through these books with their kids?
Well, I mean, we have a ton of parents who approach us about, you know, they're interested in getting their kids into Dungeons and Dragons, but for whatever reason, the original Player's Handbook can be a little intimidating or just a little impenetrable to get started because, you know, there's so many charts and stuff, and you're like, I don't know what of this I need to know. So this is really focusing that down to what you need to know about the world, about how the characters work, about how, you know, you're going to interact with monsters and locations and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
A cool way to share with your kids.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, we're really stoked for it.
Very cool. Oh, sorry.
Now, moving from talking about Dungeons and Dragons and kids now to talking about something maybe that you would recognize more in adult pop culture.
Adult Swim, even.
A little bit.
Right, yeah. So tell me a little bit about what we can expect in the comic world from you.
Yeah, so Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons. How many of you have read Rick and Morty versus D&D? You guys like that? Good.
Yeah.
It was good fun, right? Pat Rothfuss and Troy Little and I put this monstrous, insane thing that shouldn't exist out into the universe. And it worked. For some insane reason, it worked. I got to give, Pat really came to the project with like a mission statement. And what he said was, you know, Dungeons and Dragons is, you know, killing monsters and gathering treasure and experience points, but it's also about spending time with the people you care about. And Rick and Morty is edgelord humor and stupid violence and swearing, but it's also about dysfunctional people trying to learn to live with each other. And I read that and I was like, man, we can really do something special with this. And then Troy stepped in with just brilliant artwork. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do. I'm biased, but the response to it's been phenomenal, so phenomenal, that we all were kind of taken aback. I think Wizards was taken aback, and IDW and Oni, the people who co-published the comic, were taken aback. And the ideas keep flowing, and we can't stop. And so Troy Little and I are happy to announce Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons 2. And it is called The Painscape, and it's going to be a twisted turn in Rick's, I don't want to give away too much. Let's say that Rick has made a lot of failed characters back in first edition. And in all the infinite dimensions and all the multiverses out there, those characters exist. And they're very angry at him. And so last time they went to Faerun and they went through 5 editions of D&D, and this time D&D is coming to Earth and it's not taking any prisoners. So we're incredibly excited about it. It's going to be an absolute ripping mad adventure. The first issue, we just released the cover as the press embargo went up, and it's a riff on the Mad Mage source book. So you've got this insane Rick covered in the cloak with many eyes, and it's just like this bonkers wild ride. So we cannot wait for people to check it out. Like last time, we're going to have character sheet covers. We're going to have all sorts of fun throwbacks, nostalgia, but we're also pushing out into a lot of really funky 5th edition elements that I think people are going to enjoy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I want to keep so many secrets. Let's say that the stuff that Summer and Morty learned on their adventures in Faerun have not completely faded, and they might be able to use some of those skills to keep themselves alive in the here and now. Yeah.
So someone should go back definitely and read
Volume
absolutely.
1
first.
Yeah, like we made sure that you could jump right in, but there's definitely some fun throwbacks. And I got to dig into my voluminous collection of D&D, and like last time, Pat and I were having so much fun riffing on old nostalgia from Dungeons & Dragons. So if you can read the book and not know any of the old stuff, and you'll still get a good sense of it, but the little cameos that we poked in there poor Troy, we were sending him just reams and reams of visual reference, and he was having an absolute ball, injecting as much of it as possible in there. And we're doing the same thing here. I've been literally sending him maps of particular modules so he can draw these cutaway views of dungeons that Rick is going to be pulled into from the old school. And yeah, it is just absolute chaos in a way that this thing even exists kind of blows me away. When I first got approached by doing this project, I literally said to Sarah Gatos, who approached me with it, I said, that sounds like a really fun combination, it'll never happen. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, you got 2 huge license holders, and they're not going to want us to do that. And she's like, no, but it'd be great. Sure, it'd be really great. And here we are, like, you know, the book came out, it's a huge hit, people love it, and we're just going to push it until we either break it or people lose their minds. So we're very excited. Yeah, this is literally, I'm having so much fun with this thing, and it feels like we can't go crazy enough.
Well, speaking of that, I think there's one other thing that fans are going to be really excited about if they love Rick and Morty and Dungeons and Dragons.
Right, so we don't want to be selfish, you know. We don't want to hold on to this so tightly. So we thought, what if you guys could go on a Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons adventure yourself?
What if Rick was your dungeon master?
What if Rick was your dungeon master? So one of the things we're very happy to announce is Rick and Morty versus Dungeons and Dragons, or Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty, the adventure module. A tabletop role-playing adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is...
So, yeah, I always mix up the title. So it's Dungeons and Dragons versus Rick and Morty.
We did that particularly to confuse you.
I know. I'm so used to saying RM D&D, and now it's D&D
Yep.
RM.
Just
but
mix it
yeah.
up.
So Rick is your dungeon master. He's going to ruin everything you've ever loved and your own self-esteem, and maybe you'll have a really good time. It's going to be really, really nuts. We're tearing open the game paradigm, and Kate has been the best. We've been working away on this thing.
Kate.
Yeah.
I just have to say, because Kate is the lead on this project, and there is like no greater person to work on this. Also, this guy doesn't say no to anything.
No, they were
so
like, hey, it would be cool if maybe you threw some ideas into the pot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, documentation.
What do you think?
And then I was throwing commentary, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Rick would say this, and Rick would do this, and what if we had him go, we could have these charts, and he could have his own critical fumble tables, and
Yeah.
We did a little bit, if you guys, I don't know if any of you were at Emerald City Comic Con this year. We did Rick and Morty versus D&D live, and I was Rick Sanchez for 2 hours.
You do a good Rick.
Yeah,
Do a
thanks.
good Rick. I was squanchy.
You were squanchy. You squanched it up.
You
That
do
was
a
good
good
times.
Thank you.
And so we ran 2 hours of this encounter that I actually was ripping liberally from some of the things that we were actually already working on in the adventure, but I didn't tell anyone that. So I was rolling on some of those tables and causing chaos. And the audience had a really good time.
Yeah, it was a good show.
And I had a better time because I was Rick the whole time. That was good.
Working on this has been, it's my first, so Ghost of Saltmarsh is my first lead product, but this is my first like solo lead. And can I talk about I can talk about what's in it.
No, yeah, we should talk
Talking
about what's
points,
in
I know what they are. So in this is actually not only an adventure, but it's a box set.
Yeah.
So this box set contains a rule book that has been heavily revised by Rick Sanchez.
Annotated, let's say.
Yeah, it's definitely annotated. And then also an adventure, complete custom new adventure that we wrote. I got to give a shout out again. Ari Levitch and Adam Lee helped to write this. Ryan Hartman from Penny Arcade also put a bunch of work into it. And we ended up banging out this adventure that is, I think it's safe to say, like total horseshit insanity.
It is horseshit insanity.
Yeah. And
In the best way.
Yeah, I kept sending you guys stuff as well, and you were like, that sounds great. And I was like, they've got to stop us at some point. There's got to be a limit.
We have not found the threshold yet. Right.
I'm really excited that
But
you
it's
haven't
like,
found the threshold.
we don't know what the limit is with this at all, as long as these two properties
I'm glad you
combine.
like that.
I got to tell you, they sent me, because once I took on a role where now you're an official freelancer writing game content, they sent me these incredible documentation on how everything's supposed to be formatted, and I literally sent back an email that goes, Rick's not following any of that.
We have a lot
That's
of
not how Rick
liberties
do.
with it.
Yeah,
And,
I've had to. Rick is not an actual entity, but I have had to like fight Rick on this product. But yeah, writing in the adventure, got to write in Rick's voice, and the box set also contains not only a set of dice, but a totally kick-ass Diem screen.
It is glorious.
That Troy Little, I think sent.
Troy Little did a lot of the art for this.
Troy Little did all the art for this, I'm pretty sure.
We love you, Troy.
Yeah,
We love you, Troy. You also don't say no to anything.
That's right.
So let me tell you the story. We don't have a minute, but we sent the Diem screen art description to Troy, and it's like 4 panels of complete insanity. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say he sent us back a complete sketch with no revisions in like, I don't know, an hour.
Yeah.
Like the dude is insane.
He's amazing.
So good, and I cannot wait for you guys to play this hot garbage. It's so good.
Again, with the perfect place to end. Cannot wait.
I'll go now.
For the hot garbage. Thank you guys so much. Let's hear it.
Thank you so much,
for our
guys.
panel. You guys can go ahead. Thank you. We're going to welcome some new panelists to the stage. There they are. Welcome. Everyone, please welcome them back to the stage.
I'm back.
All right, now we have a couple new faces to this panel. Let's go through again. And in case people just tuned in late, introduce yourself again when we get to you, Chris. But
Sure.
let's start with you, Nathan.
Hi, my name is Nathan Stewart. I'm the director of Dungeons and Dragons, and they let me come on stage every now and again, and I'm so excited to be here.
Chris?
I'm Chris Perkins. I'm a nerd.
Sounded like a support group introduction. We're all here.
I work on
also a
stories and
nerd.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm Liz Schuh. I'm the Director of Publishing and Licensing for Dungeons & Dragons.
By the way, these are the 2 longest running employees on Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, really?
With Shauna.
Oh, and Shauna.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a hand for that.
Yeah.
For all your hard work. All right, now we were just talking about the Rick and Morty box set, and you guys have also brought us a box set.
Yeah.
Tell us what's here.
Who wants to start?
Ooh, this is the new D&D Essentials kit, and we're super excited to release what is essentially a great follow-up to the D&D starter set, which has been incredibly... It's been an incredibly successful product. It's brought lots and lots of new people into the Dungeons and Dragons hobby. And Chris had a ton of fun designing this for us, and so he's going to show off some of the contents.
I think he's enjoying the content.
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
A little bit too much.
Yeah.
So Jeremy and I collaborated on the creation of the book parts of this product. So those of you who don't know, the starter set, one of our most successful products, has an adventure in it called The Lost Mine of Phandelver. Probably the most played 5th edition adventure out there. We thought, given that success, we'd go back to Phandalin and do another starter adventure set in the same setting so that you can use them together or just enjoy a new adventure in the setting that you know. So, there is a rule book that Jeremy put together. No, that's the adventure. There is a rule book that Jeremy put together, 64 pages, that has character creation in it. So this is a change from the original starter set. You create your characters up to level 6. There are 5 classes, the 4 iconics plus the bard, because we know there's lots of role players out there. And in addition to everything you need to build characters for those 5 classes, there are rules at the back for something called sidekicks. And you may have seen them up on our website in an Unearthed Arcana article. This is a streamlined version of those rules. And why are they in here, you might ask? Because the adventure, Dragon of Ice Spire Peak, also designed for levels 1 to 6, allows you to play it with 1 DM and 1 player, or a regular party. So you have the option. And if you do plan to play it with just 1 player, like your little brother, your little sister, your daughter, your son, whatever, there are sidekicks that they can have to come on the adventure with them. So a secondary character. So while Jeremy was feverishly putting this together, I was feverishly writing this. And this is meant to be a starter adventure for new DMs, so it's very new DM friendly and takes you to 14 different adventure locations that are tied to quests that you can pick up in Phandalin. And one of the evolutionary things that we added to this product was a poster map that has the map of Phandalin on one side and the larger adventure region on the other.
Yay.
And there is a DM's map version in the adventure that marks where all the secret locations are that the characters can go. Another development is there is a box in here that you assemble yourself that contains 81 cards that you basically unperforate, which has all of the magic items that appear in the adventure, so that when they find a magic item, you can just hand them the card, and then they can just keep track of it that way. There are all the conditions, in case the players forget how a condition works. There's all of the quests, so when they get a quest in Phandalin, you can just give it to them on a card, and they can keep track of it.
I love that people are clapping for these things. Like, we have all experienced the need for these things, haven't we? Yes.
If the players forget how combat works, there's a combat cheat sheet card. There's 3 of them, actually.
So I think, Chris, what you're saying is that this product is great for seasoned dungeon masters who are teaching new people how to play, but it's also great for new dungeon masters who are just getting their feet
very,
wet.
very friendly. All of the sidekicks are on cards. They have little illustrations.
What kind of sidekicks are they? Are they adventurers as well?
They are. Using the sidekick rules, they're one of 3 kinds of sidekicks. You can get the expert, who is basically got all the skills. Mm-hmm. There's the spellcaster, and you choose either arcane or divine, and then there's the warrior.
Cool.
And ideally, if you're just a wizard going on the adventure by yourself, you'll probably want to take a warrior sidekick or an expert sidekick with you.
Right.
Or a healer. Sidekick.
Were you asking because you thought Baby Waffles might be in there?
So all the sidekicks in here are humanoid.
Okay.
But yeah.
So
And
not abyssal chickens.
Right. And then the last thing is, of course, no DM would be complete without a Diem screen with all new art.
Yay.
This screen has all the essential information, of course, for the DM on the inside. It's not adventure specific, so the DM can then take this and use it with their own campaigns.
Great.
And if you want to stream this adventure, you've got a great piece of art to put in front of you.
Yeah.
And then we've got the red dice.
Yeah. You described that color to me earlier, the color of the dice.
Oh, cherry lozenge red.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And there are 2 D20s. Do you know why?
Why?
Advantage and disadvantage. Oh,
Yeah.
this is our audience. And there are,
Preaching to the choir,
there are
baby.
4 D6s. Do you know why?
Fireball?
Right, for rolling your stats. All right, you got this.
And is that everything that's in the box?
Yeah, and this copy's mine. You can't have it.
So you probably are very excited to get your hands on this. You can find this product at Target beginning on June 24th, and you'll be able to find it everywhere else on September 3rd.
Nice. So why was it that the need was seen for a new essentials kit? What is this doing for us? Where did the idea for this come from?
This really came from the idea that we wanted to give people something that fell sort of between the existing starter set and jumping right into the 3 core rule books. And I think that Chris and Jeremy really just sort of hit the perfect medium.
And it sounds like some of the big differences are the character creation, the 1v1 or 1-and-1 storytelling mode, right? Are those the big major ones?
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
And lovely artwork, very exciting. It looks, it's funny because it's like a fighting a dragon scene, but compared to what we've been talking about here in Hell, it looks so peaceful.
And a little chillier.
It
A little
does.
chillier, yeah. A bit of a contrast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, in this iconic box, it was very important that we have dungeons and a dragon.
Dragon.
Right.
Surprised how many adventures we have that are missing one of those.
Right, yeah, interesting. Can you tell us, I know that we don't want to spoil the adventure as always, but can you tell us anything about what we might find in that adventure?
Fun.
I didn't think I'd find that. I'm so excited.
It's just a lot of cool quests to cool locations that you've never seen before, and sort of a roaming dragon threat that the DM can play with.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm not really spoiling much to say that there are some delightfully evil druids running around.
Oh, very nice. And you said we could play this as something of like an expansion to Lost Mines of
Yes,
Phandelver.
so you can take the locations and such that are in Lost Mine of Phandelver, combine them with the locations in here, and run that as a much larger campaign, because
cool.
it all can exist at the same time. Or you can say, Phandelver happened first, and this is following that, or you can reverse them.
Gotcha.
It's just same playground, more toys.
I love
Chris,
it.
can I ask you, did you hide any green flames in there?
There's kind of one on the cover. If you,
I looked, I'm like, that's a Chris Perkins special.
yeah, I try to slip green flames into everything that I do now. So,
We can't help ourselves
yeah.
anymore. It's like
I think there's one in there somewhere.
Yeah, I knew
Yeah.
there would be.
Well, you've brought us a box as well. Nathan, tell us what you have here.
I have the newest and coolest dice set. So this is the dice set to accompany Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. But this one is pretty slick. Do you
Yeah,
see
I
it?
hear the ooh in the audience.
So some of you guys know that we started doing the dice sets a couple of years ago, and we were just like, oh, of course, why wouldn't we do dice sets to go with these adventures? But we didn't maybe think it through enough, or we didn't kind of like think, oh, this one, like we missed putting 2d20s, I think, in the first one, and then some of the colors and stuff. So this is the third in the line. So this is by far, I think, the coolest because we've been learning. So it comes in this super nice box, and you open it up. Oh, I have cards too. Oh, I've seen this map. Oh, so you've got the. You want some hordes of demons or legions of devils?
And what is this map of? What are we looking at here?
There you go. That's the Avernus. That's the playground.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
Avernus, so this is where we are descending to.
This is, you're basically, racing across hell while trying to dodge all these baddies, right?
And these are our baddies that we're looking at.
And then there's nice monster cards for the baddies there. And I think, I don't know, this looks like Richard's art, but he doesn't
That's
usually
actually
draw 'em.
Max's.
It is.
art,
It's
yeah.
oh, that's right. Max, are you still here? So these are great, and I don't want to give them all away. They mentioned that you'd have the Cipher, so here's the Cipher for Infernal.
And there's some Infernal writing on here, so I could be deciphering it
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
Definitely
let's
wanna
get
do
to the dice.
Yeah.
Oh, down goes. So 2d20s, obviously for advantage and disadvantage. And then the classic for
May I?
d6, of course. They're beautiful, they match the theme.
And how would you describe this color? Hellfire?
Oh, now I would.
Oh, nice.
Brimstone, maybe it's
You're welcome.
brimstone.
Oh,
They were calling it
brimstone.
brimstone.
I
Yeah,
like that. That's
brimstone.
better, actually.
Yeah.
It's like a kind of a deep lava
Yeah.
brimstone red. Absolutely. Very cool.
And then if you wanted to roll it, oh, you got a nice little dice box.
There's velvet in there. We know how we like to.
Oh!
There's two.
And there's two. So if
One
we're
for you,
playing-
one for a friend.
Yeah. Oh, I love, this is where I'm the most home, because I genuinely see people going, because there's velvet in the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely. Here, look, you want to hear it? Are you ready?
Oh.
Yeah. So good.
Did she have advantage or disadvantage? No, that was a D12.
I got a 16. 16.
Not bad.
Roll a d20 and I'll tell you what strange encounter in Avernus.
Okay. So nervous. 5.
5. A banquet table covered with food and drink fit for a king. Upon closer inspection, each morsel has a tiny face. Although they smell terrific and are perfectly delicious, all of them scream and blubber when eaten.
Was that an Adam Lee special?
Do not want.
So if you need a little inspiration for your game,
Yeah.
all you have to do is roll a d20.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
I was so excited. You were talking about a banquet table. It just went, meow. Oh, wow. Okay, so this is really cool. So not even just a dice set, but kind of dice and more.
Yeah, it's it's dice and miscellany, and it comes with the dice tray, and we're trying
And
to
plastic.
we're trying to surprise your life. Hey,
Wow.
I'm almost positive that's recycled and recyclable.
That is recyclable.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
very nice.
that Hasbro and Wizards are very
Yep.
very mindful on that.
Yeah, it is. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a big.
That's great.
That's a big one. Yeah, we're super proud of it, and like I said, sometimes we don't get it right on the first swing on new things, but we listen to the fans. We're trying to do new stuff. So this one, definitely took a lot of learning, and the designers when they were actually designing the thing. All the little elements came out just, so cool. So we're really proud of it.
Yeah, even to the point of the size of the dice tray. We really thought about when you're at the table and it's crowded, you've got your books, you've got your character sheets, your pencils, your drink. We wanted to make it so it wasn't too big, but it was nicely sized for rolling.
Yeah, and light as well.
And look at that. That's just...
Yeah, so we have a skull here on the front. Does that have particular significance?
That's the symbol of Baal.
The symbol of Baal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to run into Baal or Bane or Merkel at all, are you?
I hope not.
Maybe.
And it looks like we have kind of some like labyrinthian looking things here on the sides.
Ah, that's something, yeah.
Have we talked at all?
We have not talked about that.
Okay. Can we spoil it a little
look,
bit?
They can see it. I didn't spoil it. It's right there.
Well, you're going to notice a lot of the stuff that you see around this weekend is going to have this kind of puzzle glyph there. So there's a really cool puzzle box that comes in there. And not only, what? And not only did they write it into the adventure, but the team found, I always forget how to say that.
Kagan Sound.
Kagan Sound makes these insane puzzle boxes. So we had him make one, and he asked, how long should it take an average person to solve? And we're like, oh, I don't know.
666 years.
Yeah. So he basically, he'll go up to whatever you want. He's like, do you want an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, a year? Like, what do you like? And so we're like, well, we need to be able to do it like on the stream. So we said, can you do it in an hour? He came in, he brought the box and showed us, and Adam Lee and Ari Levitch have solved it, but I don't think anyone's done it in an hour. And if anyone does this weekend, well, there's something really cool in there they're going to find. But it's so we're going to tape that. We're going to put that up on the video on demand, and you'll see that element come across a lot. And so it's just really cool how everything's working together. And the team, they just always outdo themselves.
Yeah, this is gorgeous. I can't wait to get my hands on it. How do people get their hands on this?
That's a great question. I imagine it comes out for sale at the same time as the product.
That will be available day and date with the Descent into Avernus book.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Everywhere Dungeons & Dragons is sold, at fine home stores around the world.
Fun fact about the puzzle box, because as Nathan said, it's pretty difficult to solve, even if you know what you're doing, it takes a while. We were going to hand carry these down here to the event because they're delicate and they're beautiful. And then it occurred to someone that if the TSA asked us what was in the box, we would be in big trouble and we would miss our flight.
Can you open it up?
No! So we shipped them.
We shipped it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Now, there's one more box set that is not here on the table that I think we want to talk about, related to some pop culture, I believe.
Oh, that one's already out, though, isn't it? Are you talking about the Stranger Things?
Yeah, I'm talking about Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah. Liz, you probably know the most on that one.
So we had a great opportunity to partner with Hasbro Gaming and Netflix to put together a Stranger Things box set. And it was a really fun project because Stranger Things, Dungeons & Dragons, they go together. And so we were able to write an adventure that really takes you into the world of Stranger Things as if you have found Mike's box set at a garage sale. So it looks kind of a little rugged around the edges, like it's been around for a while. And this is Mike's adventure with his notes in the sides of the pages. So it really lets you delve deeply into the world of Stranger Things and actually play the characters that the kids on the show play.
And I think that's one of the coolest parts is that the Netflix team sent over like the drawings and all the sheets and stuff that were like the props for the stuff. So all the drawings you see were what they used. They didn't always show up on the television, but they were the actual drawings that they used for their characters in the show. So it feels really authentic. And I don't know, I'm probably not spoiling anything, but I think it's going to be available on D&D Beyond if it's not already.
It will be soon.
Oh, I did spoil something. So yeah, I mean, because a lot of you, because you're going to get this set, you probably get this set, and you guys probably have some of your own dice already, so it's not just for the new folks who want to play it and don't have a set, so it's also going to be available on D&D Beyond, so you can play the adventure, which is a pretty fun kind of one-off.
That must be really, really cool to be in a position of having worked on Dungeons & Dragons so long and see it represented in something that is maybe bringing people to the game where they haven't played before. Tell us a little bit about what Stranger Things looked like through your eyes and what it's been like kind of welcoming those people into the game community.
Yeah, well, it's been really exciting to both watch D&D represented on the show, because it's not only do the kids play at the table, but they really go on their very own epic D&D adventure. So that's been so much fun for us to just sort of watch that unfold over the first 2 seasons. And of course, the 3rd season is coming up starting July 4th, so we're all waiting with bated breath for that. But it's really brought so many new players who either never considered playing D&D before, or who played a long time ago, and they're reminded of how much fun it is, and they want to play again. So I think it's been really a great convergence of pop culture, entertainment, and gaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's great to see the talented writers over there, who really do get D&D, I think, at a, like a real core level. And so I think that we were always really proud to see so many people watching something we felt was such a good representation of D&D, because, we all love this game and this hobby so much that, when someone drops D&D reference or says something and it's not authentic, you're kind of like, but when they do it and it's like, no, like they play, like you can tell these writers are into it, you're like, oh, we're friends.
Now, another thing that is still kind of new is this collaboration between D&D and live streaming. And we're here as kind of the next step in this yearly cadence of doing streams where we bring people together to role play, to celebrate Dungeons & Dragons, to play with our toys together. So tell us a little bit about what we can expect this year and why this event is kind of important to Dungeons & Dragons.
Wow, I have not heard it asked like that, but that is a good one. So this is kind of our 3rd/4th year. I think you've been doing them with us since the first real show, the second trial one in Seattle, right? And so this year really is, for me, I don't know if it is for Greg, we haven't actually talked about it, but this is a really proud one for me, because I think we've finally hit our stride here. I think last year was great, but we were really missing the play at the tables around there. And so having 2 days with 3 great epics where everyone gets to play at the table, combined with all the tabletop play, combined with so many great streamers in the other room, and then all of our great partners selling the gear. So this is really at the inception point of putting this together. I think that this show is finally what we had always hoped that it would be, but we kind of built up to it. So I'm really proud just of all the great work. I'm really super excited. You guys are all nice enough to buy tickets and and line up and come hang out here in the hot and crowd in and all that stuff. I mean, it's so great to see. I mean, everyone that we talk to backstage always calls it D&D summer camp, right? Because you get to come to camp and see all of your friends from last year, and it's all like, oh yeah, I saw you, and and lots of us pay attention to each other on Twitter and the streams and stuff. But it's nice to see each other in real life. And so this is just such a great celebration, I think, of the fans, the community, the great designers, all the staff working on this stuff. So this is a really, it's special. I mean, it's a lot of work goes into it, and obviously, the weeks leading up to it, Greg and Emmy and Trish and Pelham and a bunch of the folks, kind of behind the scenes, getting all this stuff, start pulling their hair out and everything. But it's love, right? So, it just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, you've been involved in live streaming Dungeons & Dragons for a long, long time, back in Acking all the way up to now, and you have a unique perspective as somebody who has played in real life for a stream, you've played off stream, you've watched streams, and so I'm curious if you have any tips for people who are either tuning in and they're not here to participate, but they want to get a feel for what's actually happening through the live stream, or they're here in person and they want to experience for the first time what it's like to be here in real life. Do you have any tips for people to get the most out of this event?
No. No, I would just say there are so many beautiful, wonderful people out there who have great stories to tell. Just find them, Get with the people who you want to play with, or just talk to them and see what D&D means to them. The more people you talk to, the more you feel part of the community, and the more the community can give back to you and help you. We're a very supportive community. We're all watching each other's backs. We're helping each other's games. We're sharing our ideas. D&D is a game that expects you, in a way, to create your own stuff. But you don't have to create it in a vacuum. We give you avenues to share it through DM's Guild, through your streams. You can share your DM style, your play style, your character concepts on D&D Beyond. You can use that to help share your characters, your character ideas. Just welcome to the community and bring your friends, and we will show you the best time ever. And you will go away with lifetime friendships and memories that are as magical as anything you can see in movies or TV or anywhere else.
Amen to that, right? Now there's one more product, as it were, that we're kind of presenting here, and that is that we have live Dungeons & Dragons entertainment that's coming up on this stage. Right after this is when it will start. We have a multi-character saga, if you will, that's spanning a couple days, and we're bringing together lots of characters and lots of players from lots of different D&D streaming stories. So can you tell us a little bit about that, what people can look forward to here?
Chris, I think you're capping off the 4-part adventure, so what do you got in store?
What's going to happen leading up?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much to say that we've, the 4 DMs have conspired a little bit and taken some of the toys that are in Avernus and are just going to play with them in novel ways, in ways that do not spoil the adventure. I think that's important to note. You may see, we'll show off some of the characters, but we're going to take them a little bit out of their normal adventure context and use them in a slightly different way, to give people a feel for what Avernus can be like. And so there are thematic ties. We're all looking for different ways to bring the idea of hell to life in these games and to make it hell for the players in a fun way, of course.
Right.
But
fun
really,
for you or fun for the players?
Fun for the players, and fun for the people watching, because as the players struggle with their ordeals in hell, you will all laugh at them. And that's just good for everybody.
That's just good, clean
Good,
fun.
clean fun.
Exactly. So these are not long games. They're just under 2 hours each, so they'll be fast and furious. And I look forward to the carnage.
And who are the DMs that we're going to be watching?
So the first DM is Jeremy Crawford, and he is going to be taking one of the Infernal warlords and doing fun things with her, followed by Kate Welch.
Who we like to call Evil Kate.
Evil Kate.
We have
So
good
two
Kate and
Kates.
Evil Kate on
Okay,
the team.
Yeah.
gotcha.
She'll be taking another warlord and doing a story tied into that. And then tomorrow, the 2 DMs are Marisha Ray
Yeah.
and myself, and we've each chosen we've each chosen a warlord. So and we'll be dropping little seeds of things throughout. But really, each DM has their own kind of scenario in mind, using the components that they've been given. And so, I don't know what's going to happen.
Great. Well, I can't wait to find out what is going to happen. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be coming back with that live entertainment. But first, thank you so much for this event, for these products, for these stories. Thank you all so much for being here.
And thank you all for attending. Really super excited to have everyone here. You guys bring so much energy. I know that the players up on the table feed off of it. So thank you for joining D&D Live 2019, The Descent, and we hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you guys so much.